Conveying to the layperson the secret targeting that I and others endure indefinitely in a rational and plausible way is not an easy task, given that many, if not the majority of people claiming to be targets are not whistleblowers or other high-profile candidates one might assume to be singled out for special covert attention. Factor in the number of people taking part to stalk, harass and ultimately harm each individual, and key technologies used in each of the separate elements that comprise this targeting program, it's understandable for there to be doubt. But in amongst the misinformation and disinformation online from parties keen not to have this targeting program ever been exposed to the public are genuine people having their lives secretly destroyed. These targeting operations are successful because they are ignored by all. Mainstream media stay silent. Human rights organisations, as well as the legal profession, won't countenance the fact these illegal ops are taking place, or if they do know about them, they bury their heads to our reality. Which brings me to the police. I live in London, and for me, the Metropolitan Police are a complicit force, which of course doesn't bode well if, like me, a target is trying to expose these unlawful operations. The multi-person stalking and harassment outside forms a significant part of this program, but from personal experience since 2009, it is a neighbour living opposite, above, or in my case below, that ultimately has the most important role insofar as taking part in your stealthy destruction. Given their proximity and armed with the tools necessary to accurately locate and harass you, such low-life mercenary neighbours are the crap de la crap of the gang-stalking harassment hierarchy. I won't deny some of my outside stalkers and harassers are also provided with the means to invisibly harm me, but a neighbour does have the advantage of being a few yards, if not feet from me, with the only obstacle a floor, and there are various flavours of hardware available to law enforcement, the military and select others, whose payload passes through such obstacles, whether made of wood or concrete, as though not there. Implausible as it will sound, I have had a succession of neighbours lured to the dark side since 2009. In each case, a substantial financial or other inducement would have been the motivating factor, rising far above any morality or guilt about torturing another human being. But who approached them to take part, and what were those incentives? From the first sadistic neighbour to the current, we need to travel back to 2009, where all this began. I have a feeling Daniel Mesfin and his accomplices were deliberately moved into the vacant one-bed flat below at 54 Bath Close here in Peckham, which was the previous flat. His and his accomplices' mission, to make it quite obvious I'd been singled out for a new life of being covertly targeted. From 2013 to 2017, and in a new flat in Peckham, established neighbours, also and aptly in the flat below, had taken over the harassment baton seamlessly before moving out to a nice riverside apartment in St George's Wharf in Vauxhall. Finally, and in the same flat, we have the current tenant, Christine Smith, I believe her name is, and her partner, who I call Muscles. The MO is nearly always the same: banging under where I am, regardless of which room I'm in, shouting obscenities, and generally making it be known you are somehow seen in the flat, or at the very least your location is known within it. Unlike with my previous neighbours, I can't be woken throughout the night because I haven't slept in the flat since January 2017. But I do receive burning sensations and uncomfortable aches to any parts of my body facing the flat below, should I stay still for more than a few minutes, which might explain why I don't have much body fat, because I'm almost constantly on the move, and it's essential that I am. Since 2012 I have chronic joint pains, and I don't have arthritis nor osteoarthritis, and the burning is also a daily and nightly occurrence, even now being felt as I sleep in the car. Radar or Reidar Visser is a guy I chanced upon post 2013 after I learned what I had been experiencing was a known thing, and it was a revelation and extremely helpful and a lifeline to know that I wasn't alone. The new addition to my harassment of being stalked and verbally harassed outside by strangers didn't enter my new targeting existence until 2014 or 15, and I won't deny it has added another horrific dimension to my targeting, though the invisible harm being done to me in both a deniable and invisible manner when in the flat was and is the most troubling aspect of my targeting experience, which is why I suggest you make a note of those neighbours' names and faces for future reference. So, back to the police. Regular and loyal viewers of my videos, few as you are, and poor as some of my videos may be as a watching experience, will know the police have contributed to the targeting in a few nefarious ways. Gaslighting and dismissal of my evidence for one, and then there were the highly dubious and deliberately made mental health referrals, knowing there was and is nothing wrong with my mental health, but necessary for them to make these as part of my targeting. It's unbecoming conduct of any police officer, but then again the whole police services and our system is predicated on the falsehood of being lawful and fair for everyone, when this patently is not the case. Mr Visser had a blog about the stalking operations he has experienced, which followed him from country to country. I've screen recorded two of his blog pages, which convey more ably than most the minutiae of the targeting. He was suspicious of claims made by some that in addition to the more established methods of harassment, weapons were also being used. These weapons have, as I've stated, the capability to harm invisibly and silently as their payload passes through floors and concrete as a hot knife through butter. But he eventually conceded such secret horror attacks were also being used against him. I highly recommend you read these two pages from his blogs. If you'll be reading them via this video, then you'll need to hit the pause button quite a lot. But you could go to the sources that I've used by typing in his name followed by police stalking in the search engine of your choice. Unlike Mr Visser, I haven't been to other countries, but fully believe him when he states these stalking, harassment and torture operations continue. I have been further afield than Greater London and stayed for 4 days at a chalet in Hampshire, as I needed to get away from the tortures that were being inflicted upon me. But even at this detached chalet, away from the main road, I was woken by stones being thrown at the roof. I stayed one night at a Premier Inn near Manchester Airport and was astonished at being woken by repetitive thumps directly above me, which would continue on and off through the night. This was a stark realization that harassment would continue to some degree wherever I went. To sum up, I will state emphatically, the police are sanctioning a torture program. I cannot speak for any other target, but as a result of being secretly selected for this evil, I have chronic joint pains, I have burning sensations when I'm in the flat, and now also in the car, which is where I sleep, and have slept since 2017. Ridicule and humiliation forms one part of the targeting, and which organisation might be responsible for arranging that. The constant, deliberate sleep interference, which I endured in 2 flats over a 5-year period, in tandem with the stress from the other strands of my targeting, have and will continue to age me prematurely, and the hardware which I believe is and has been trained on me is disfiguring me. This is a covert torture program, and the British police force sanction it and collectively collude in the targeting. Although the police have gaslit the evidence of my pariah status and some of the stalking, they will be acutely aware that once the character assassination has been proven beyond any reasonable doubt, which I believe it already has been, the rest of this targeting program's various toxic and torturous parts can no longer be dismissed. I will therefore continue to add to the evidence already online and ensure there can be no room for manoeuvre by the police using the last gasp tactics to deny what both they and I know only too well, that they are colluding in the targeting. If something should happen to me before obtaining this additional proof, you won't need to have Einstein's brain to realise why.